Since the invention of horsepower, mankind has created wealth and adventure from a relationship with machines. Man and machine. What you're about to see is the story of a legend on wheels. It is a story of dedication and years of searching for answers that only seem to create more questions. It is a story that helped define the term sports car. In other words, it's the story of men who knew from the beginning they were on a road that never ends, on a constant search for improvement. It was a simple, powerful piece of machinery that quickly attracted a cult. From the beginning, it was not intended to be merely a means of reaching point B from point A. They named it the Triumph and watched it evolve into the graceful lines of this sleek champion, the TR6. It was and is an invention born and bred for racing. Drivers who have experienced the sensation of pushing this tough little machine to its outer limits remember the experience with unusual affection. Midwest champion Dennis Wilson describes a loyal machine, a ride that refuses to quit.
I think just overall handling, but the big thing is the engine. The engine is just so versatile. It seems like you can, whatever I've had to ask of it in a race, it's always seemed willing to give everything it could, you know, when I needed it. And I think things like that, you know, that's really the clincher.
To a three-time national champion like Lee Mueller, the only right word for this relationship is pleasure.
Well, the car was really a pleasure to drive. It handled it extremely well. It was a very fast car, had good horsepower, and something like this that allows the driver to use himself more as far as being able to control the speed through the corners. And when you get to a real fast corner that, you know, you have a choice of taking it full throttle or part throttle, that car allowed you a lot more freedom than other cars did to decide for yourself exactly how fast the corner was.
Over the years, even the loyal opposition, including former Datsun driver Bob Sharp, had to admit there was something special about any race against this rugged British challenge.
The TR6 with its low center of gravity and really low frontal area was a very good handling car and really gave us something to shoot for. They used as much of the car as they had to win. And when we came along and challenged them a bit, they just turned the wick up a little bit more until we made them turn the wick all the way up. Then we had some competitive racing.
Bob Tullius, the man in charge of turning up that mysterious wick during East Coast racing efforts, helped improve the breed to the point where it simply won most of the time.
It was the best handling sports car, and it was acknowledged. The people in the industry looked at the car, and it was virtually unbeatable. It got beat, but we were being beat by cars that were vastly superior, and we were highly competitive with them. The car was a second a lap slower than we were making it go. I'm guessing, and it would have to be a guess, that it won 80% of its races.
A winner 80% of the time. An amazing record in any sport, especially the demanding, exacting, frustrating world of road racing.
When I was just a young man, a wise man said to me, there's no love worth having, but a love that can be free. There's no man worth knowing, but a man who can't be known. And there's no
Success by Design is presented by Triumph Sports Cars. England in the early 50s, and Sir John Black of Standard Triumph was itching to get into the sports car business. Sir John's formula for this adventure was simple. You put a powerful engine in a small two-seater chassis. This combination would be exciting, durable, and stingy with gasoline. In 1952, this dream became a reality. A prototype that could do over 90 miles an hour. Full of potential, but rather rough around the edges, this first TR sports car needed some serious refinements. Sir John and other backers of the TR concept then asked rally driver Ken Richardson to help them modify and improve this new breed. Following a few test runs, Richardson agreed. One year later, 1953, Richardson was even more determined to fulfill his end of the agreement. A refined TR2 prototype was shipped to Belgium for some flat-out speed tests. Here on a smooth stretch of highway outside Brussels, Richardson pushed through an official mile with an average speed of over 124 miles per hour. Following hours of additional endurance runs at over 100 miles an hour, the TR2 was pronounced ready for the production line. The first production models rapidly earned a reputation for ruggedness and reliability, with several impressive rally victories, including the French Alpine. Even today, its performance characteristics are impressive. With a top end over 105 miles per hour, the stock TR2 could squeeze 34 miles out of every gallon of gas. The TR3 came equipped with an egg box grille, 5 more horsepower, and in later models, front disc brakes. These rugged champions were competitive in all forms of racing, including the Circuit of Ireland, and in 1955, the 24 Hours of Le Mans. Looking more showroom original than most entries, the factory team had 2 objectives: finish strong and thoroughly test this new invention known as disc brakes. With race modifications, these TRs went over 120 miles per hour on the famous Mulsanne Straight. Despite minor problems, the team finished first in class as the lead car covered 2,026 miles during the 24 hours. In 1962, a sleek new kind of Triumph arrived on the scene. With it came an upsurge of factory-backed racing efforts. The TR4 became a spectacular front-runner on the American racing circuit. As a road car, it was more civilized, but on the track it challenged everything in sight, including the concrete and hay bales of Sebring's famous 12 Hours. 'Hours. 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 ' It was 1963, and the new fours, led by Bob Tullius, dominated their class. Once again, they actively demonstrated the breed's strongest characteristic, durability. They were the only team entered to finish intact. By 1968, over 70,000 fours had been welcomed by an American market hungry for the sports car experience. The four was followed by the first of the TR series to use a six-cylinder power plant, the TR-250. Almost immediately, a sleeker, more civilized car, the legendary TR-6, was born. Bob Tullius, a five-time national road racing champion, recalls the birth of the six with some pride.
And the TR-6 was a natural evolution, and it was a smooth transition, and it turned out to be a beautiful TR-4, TR-250 combination into the smooth lines that we envisioned it could have been. Aerodynamically, it wasn't the best car in the world. It had a lot of frontal area. But on balance, with the handling, the strength of the engine, there will not have been a better car for club racing in the SCCA, ever.
Success by Design is presented by Triumph Sports Cars. The Six continued the roughhouse tradition established by its ancestors in the 50s and 60s. With a strong international pack hot in pursuit, it consistently fought its way to the American road race of champions. In 1975, the Group 44 entry sprinted to a national title, and weeks later, the winning car was sold to actor Paul Newman. Connecticut's old blue racing team was going all out in 1976, and Newman had no intention of losing anything. Relegated to the role of classic car with the appearance of the wedge-shaped sevens, this stubborn little guided missile refused to retire gracefully. In the finals at Road Atlanta, Newman skillfully put the defending champ at the top of the pack with a qualifying run of 93 miles per hour. West Coast contender Lee Mueller describes the atmosphere.
He gets in front of you down the straight, you're dead if he can do it for 18 laps.
How sideways can you get that thing?
Yeah. Lots of practice doing that, too.
Make it wide so we can catch up.
Trouble is, when you get there, you say,
yeah, it's just how long can I hold the breath afterwards,
how deep
right?
a breath can you take?
But, yeah, it ought to be interesting, man. The start's going to be interesting because you know what we're going to be faced with, right? So,
prior to the race, I had, heard how he was doing and how fast he was going. And at the time, we were having our own problems with the TR7. And I didn't think that if we got our act together, that Newman would pose a problem. I didn't think he would be that big a threat. He had been back to Atlanta before, had never been successful, had his own problems, and was trying to get himself together as a driver. And I think that I wasn't aware of how much together he had gotten himself. And so when he did turn a legitimate time. There's no question that he belonged on the pole. But prior to the race, I didn't think he'd ever be there. And so I gained quite a bit of respect prior to the race for Newman as a driver, that he was able to do that, to overcome his own personal problems as far as, having to race like he does, like a man in a cage, is got to be highly difficult. And I think he just did a beautiful job.
It was 6 versus 7s. TR past against TR future. A classic confrontation.
When we got the green flag to start the race, I had to jump on what I thought was the field. And Jim Fitzgerald, who is a hard charger and always gets a good start, both of us got an excellent start, went by Newman, and Fitzy led me up the hill, and I was second, and we pulled away from the pack. Newman just wasn't ready for how fast we would start the race. Coming onto the back straightaway, we had probably 15 or 20 car length lead on the rest of the field. The problem I had is Fitzgerald. I figured if his car lasted, he would be quicker than I was, and that was proved out. He pulled away right away. But I was content to be where I was because he's had a bad history of mechanical problems.
A Yenko Stinger, driven by local favorite Jim Reeve, then charged into the picture to challenge Fitzgerald and his Datsun for the lead. At this point in the race, Mueller and Newman were content to watch this struggle over the 2.7-mile course. Turning each lap at over 90 miles per hour, they waited for the pace to take its toll, and it did. In a winner-take-all half-hour sprint, drivers stretched their cars to the limit. A former champion compared the experience to carrying an egg with a pair of pliers. You have to squeeze, but there is no margin for error. On the 8th lap, tire problems eliminated the Stinger, and it limped into the pits.
Into this race, over half over, 18 minutes. With 9 laps completed, we're getting lap number 10.
Minutes later, Fitzgerald's Datsun began to come unglued. The real racing, Newman versus Lee Mueller, began.
What started out as a race for third place between Newman and myself, were racing for the lead. Newman got by on the back straightaway, and I would pass him in turn 1 or turn 3, and it went back and forth that way. And what I was trying to do, my game plan was to make him make a mistake, to either make him look bad enough that he couldn't, catch up or run with me, run it, either try too hard in a corner and run off the road, try to rattle him as a driver. But he wouldn't. He had really matured and come a long way, and he wouldn't make a mistake. He would give me the benefit, okay, you can take that turn, and then he'd go by me. And so it went back and forth that way, and I thought I had him. I got him between another car and pulled out a little bit of a lead next to the last lap. but he's able to reel me in down the chute, and he won by just a half car length.
Success by Design is presented by Triumph Sports Cars. The underdog had defied the odds.
I can't say anything except this is the highest natural high that I've ever been on.
We'll be getting it again here at the banquet.
Thank you.
For the drive of his amateur racing life, Paul Newman was awarded sports car road racing's equivalent of an Oscar, the President's Cup.
And three fine drivers, and of course, you didn't get right.
Is that what it's about?
Now, us older men have other paths to follow now.
Tough and defiant to the last, the sixth in a great series of sports cars simply refused to pull over, even for the future. But time and progress ultimately catch even the fleetest contender. Today, there is a V8 in the TR Series future. A future that will continue to define and redefine the mechanical mystery known as the sports car on a road that never ends.
When I was just a young man, a wise man said to me, there's no love worth having, but a love that can be free. There's no man worth knowing, but a man who can't be known. And there's no road worth taking that ever ends. No, there's no road worth taking that ever ends.
Success by Design was presented by Triumph Sports Cars.